This is Mitch. Hey, Locke, can you hear me?
I can, Derek.
Okay.
Quinn, they allow the fewest shots at the rim. At the same time, they're about the second best team in the league defending the above the break three. How are they able to do both at the same time?
Well, I think they build, their quickness, their length, and really their competitiveness. They're able to build a perimeter and make it tough to get to the rim. And that activity also allows them to get back and contest shots, even when they're protecting the paint. I think their anticipation and they're just a committed defensive team, and you can see it. Their habits and their competitiveness to defend. Just old school defense, closeouts, shifts, help, ball pressure. Those things all add up, and that's what makes them tough to score against.
Your starting five leads the league in time played together, and I think last year was second behind Phoenix. When you don't have that, what are the things you can learn or maybe take forward from having to play out of your regular sequences?
Well, I think, as you said, whether it's injury or COVID or all kinds of different variables that can impact that, there's times where, there may be a more favorable matchup at one point in the game. But then we have a more favorable matchup, we feel like, at another point in the game. So those decisions are always there. We've felt like, certain groups and certain combinations of players for a lot of reasons, frankly. Just certain guys that connect with one another. So when that's taken out of the mix, I think it puts you in a position where obviously, you're forced to try other things. And sometimes those are things that you've wanted to do. In our case, it's just, it's hard to play Rudy 24 minutes. It's hard to play Donovan 28 minutes, so Jordan Clarkson and Joe last year, both 6 men of the year candidates, probably not going to be a 6th man of the year if you're playing 18 minutes. So you run out of minutes. And suddenly when those minutes are available to you, you get a chance to look at different combinations. Against Houston, we played Doak at the 5 in a rotation. And then the other night we used Eric that way. We've, experimented with Rudy Gay. When I say 5, usually meaning, their 5 will match up on that player or, that guy and what we do offensively, schematically, we'll play that role. So you start to see other guys acclimate to each other. Even I think you see it with multiple actions where guys start to connect and there isn't kind of hesitation. They get to know each other. And, it's hard to have that happen without practice time. And, I don't think, we were all aware that teams had a hard time practicing last year because of COVID. And that's been the case this year as well. I think our guys made a real commitment a week ago. I say commitment, they wanted to do it, but, we tested at 5 so we could practice. And then we tested at 11 p.m. at night so we could practice in the morning, and then tested in the morning so we could play the game. So, those practice times allow you to do some of that as well. And that, I think, gives guys a little more comfort and continuity in some of those other lineups that you're talking about.
When you face the Warriors.
Oh. I'm looking for you on the screen. Yeah.
When you faced the Warriors 3 weeks ago, you were talking about just being kind of impressed with, their length and skill on the point of attack in terms of being able to switch. Just what are the challenges of, as you mentioned, not having tons of practice time, trying to be able to, face a lineup like that, a defensive lineup like that, how do you go about kind of getting better at facing teams that play that way?
Well, first of all, as you know, as difficult as that game may have seemed for us offensively, we were, relative to what they've done to other opponents, we weren't really all that bad. Because I went back and looked at it and say, you know, you look at it and say, you know, who's had success attacking them and how have they attacked them? And, you know, every team is different, but, you know, the important thing for us is if they extend, you know, in their ball pressure, some of the switching, as I said before, you know, it makes it even more important for us to have spacing, you know, so that we can create space to attack. And then there's an element of precision that you have to have and timing in certain actions. If you don't, you know, if you hesitate, you know, they're able to reestablish an advantage, whether it be keep you pinned on the sideline or, you know, shift to make it difficult for you to drive the ball, you know, to get some sort of advantage. So, you know, you look at those things and it's, you know, it's not dissimilar from, you know, how we need to be able to play. It's just a question of being able to kind of impose your will and, you know, be as aggressive offensively as they are defensively, which is hard to do.
Quinn, when you're playing against a team or any of the top teams in the league, like you are, Golden State, Phoenix coming up, at the end of the season, are you going to look back and think, I wish that I would have had my full roster so that I could see certain things? Or does that thought not really have any legs? Am I grasping at straws here?
I think I think it can work both ways. I mean, certainly there's opportunities to learn about those matchups. I think both teams, you know, I think that had a big impact on us last year, frankly, when we played Phoenix 3 times in a week to start the season. The third time we played them, their game plan was entirely different. And, you know, either they held that game plan or they adjusted based on some of the things that happened in preseason. So you learn about your team, you know, and they guarded us really well, you know, during the regular season. But so I think maybe you get to see some different things, different combinations like we were talking about in the beginning. But then, you know, there's always a desire. You know, we know that, you know, Donovan's going to play. So, you know, as much as anything, you know, players can kind of learn about matchups. You know, it happens for the coaches, but it also happens for guys on the court. And, you know, I think that's, you know, when you play a team multiple times, you know, game plans change, you know, circumstances change. It's a back-to-back. It's a home game versus an away game. All those things factor in. And I think it's, you know, you want to win. And more than anything, I think you want to compete to get a clear picture of where you are. And in that case, having your full roster gives you a different look. But, you know, in lieu of that, you know, I think, you know, you want to do the same thing. And maybe if you find something, you know, maybe somebody gains confidence and you just kind of evolve as a team.
Hi, Quinn. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
The Warriors have restructured their practice this year where they do film first and then they do 20-minute segments. And just as a way to kind of evolve, adapt.
Yeah.
The young guys don't do film, you know, don't start early, then cool down and then warm back up. Is this something that all you coaches are constantly thinking of new ways? And certainly COVID protocols have changed timing. Are you always looking to adapt and find new ways to do it?
You know, beginning with like finding really large ballrooms so that when you walk through plays, you can actually see where I think, you know, you mentioned a couple things as far as if guys are doing, you know, individual work or, you know, combos. We try to work in combinations with different concepts with guys. There's certain guys that have played heavy minutes the night before, other guys that are getting back into shape. There's so many variables. You know, we watched tape yesterday before we got on the plane. You know, because sometimes you get to a market, guys are, they've had enough of the travel and want to rest. And so I think you're always tinkering with those things. Usually there's kind of a baseline formula that guys get used to. And sometimes it's good to change that up just to kind of keep it fresh. So whether it's, individual film or we have days we call Get What You Need, where, it's really up to different players to, sometimes that means sleep. And then obviously in practice situations, how you manage all that. So I think it's really fluid and, and it does, I think there's a conscious part of it as well. We've generally come All-Star break, kind of really looked at even our preparation and try to figure out, how we can make that, more productive where guys absorb more. Sometimes less is more. So I think it's something that you're always trying to kind of keep a pulse of. And for us, it's, it's something I think talking to your players about becomes really important too, because you want their input on those things as well.
Mm-hmm. Coach, when it comes to big markets like the Bay Area, for example, the Niners lose next week, then they turn into the Warriors. When the Warriors season ends, they turn to baseball. In Utah, it's not like that at you guys. What are the pluses, but yet the pressures that come with you being the only show, not only in town, but the state?
You might find some objection from that from Ryan Smith in BYU and Alex Jensen in Utah.
Well, the only only pro.
I got you.
Yeah.
No, I just had to say that. There's times when, it's collegiate and sometimes in a certain respect. And I think it's reflective of, a fan base that, in our case is avid. That's definitely not unique to us. There's probably some pretty avid 49ers fans right now, and we've got a couple of them on our coaching staff. But, I do think that on some level, that focus, players are aware of it. In a small market, those are some of the things that I think people enjoy about playing in a small market, kind of being the only show in town. Guys are recognizable around town. I think we're lucky in that, regardless of kind of how prominent guys are in the community, I think it gives them opportunities within the community because they have that kind of, I won't say singular stature, but they have a chance to impact. And I think I've also found that people are pretty, at least in our market, people are really respectful, of other guys when they're out and kind of letting them have their personal space. But it's definitely a contrast, from some of the larger markets. I don't know how to,
that team that can put that first banner there.
Yeah, there's a sense that, you are, a singular representative of not just one team, but of a community, and in our case, and of a state. So that, and that's an opportunity. And it's also, it works both ways, certainly there's, as fervent as people are and as excited as they are, there's also on the flip side of that, there's disappointment, which, everybody deals with. But I think by and large on the whole, it's something that, that our guys enjoy having that opportunity to be featured in that way in the community and the state.
All right. Last question, Andy Larson on Zoom.
Hey, Quinn, I know Donovan's out with a concussion and not with the team on the road trip. Do you have a sense of how he's feeling, or, have you been in communication with him in the recent last couple of days?
Yeah, we've, talked every day, a couple times a day. I think the challenge anytime a player's away from the team is to, keep them connected to the team. So, we sent him all of our preparation for today's game. Keon Dooling is with him, helping him with some of the protocols to the extent that he's able to do things on the court. Concussions are so variable. You know, and I feel for him in that sense, because I know he wants to be back. And, you know, you feel like you're on track and suddenly you do something and you get a headache, or, you know, you experience some dizziness. And I think what we've all found over the last decade or more is you know, how responsible and cautious that everybody needs to be with these types of injuries. And particularly if you've had, you know, he's had one. I don't know if it's been in the last year. I can't recall the last date when he was out. Trent Forrest had, you know, a real serious concussion. We've had Hassan have one. So I think, you know, first and foremost, you know, it's something that you don't mess around with. But as far as keeping him connected and talking to him, I know he's in touch with his teammates and certainly our staff as well. You know, I've got clips from the last few games before he was out that, you know, I haven't had a chance to show him. But we will do that when he's more able to, you know, to lock in on some of that stuff and gets healthy. So it's a unique injury, and because you feel good and then you try to do something and you don't feel good. So hopefully he'll be back with us soon.